Over 70% of viewers are unsubscribed. Be sure to hit that button as I push for 50,000 this year. I've delved into Qatar Airways' relationship with the Airbus A380 and its highs and lows on several occasions now. Still, several weeks ago in a video, I made mention of how the airline planned to replace the aircraft type. That brought me back to some discussions held in the last 5 years or so around the position of the aircraft and what Qatar Airways viewed as an adequate replacement for the type, and I want to explore that further. Let's first head back to 2019, when speaking with aviation analyst, a now inactive publication, Akbar Al-Baker, the former chief executive of Qatar Airways, said the plan was for the Airbus A380s to be retired and made way for the 777X. These initial plans saw the airline look to retire the aircraft on the 10th anniversary of its acquisition, which would have meant this year in 2024. But in the last 5 years, we know a lot has changed considerably. First, the elephant in the room was the global pandemic and its repercussions on the wide-body fleet at airlines such as Qatar Airways. Another vital angle that has to be explored was also the unforeseen delays that hit the 777X program basically from 2019 onwards, now meaning in 2024 that the aircraft is still yet to be certified and therefore has not been delivered to customers and is not allowed to be flown with passengers aboard, meaning that the plan of simply retiring the A380s by 2024 to make way for the 777X has not been possible. When the global pandemic arrived, Qatar Airways decided to retire the A380. This would be earlier than the 10th year anniversary, and notably without the 777X delivery. This all came about because of the plummeting demand that we were seeing, and while demand did drop, Qatar Airways was actually still operating to the best of its ability, a pretty healthy schedule, especially when you are comparing it to other major airlines. This was achieved through many repatriation flights offered. Qatar took the title as really one of the few airlines that was doing this, and look, on a personal note, they got me home in 2021 from the UK when my lease had expired, my visa ran out, and I was stuck in the country. They were one of the few offering flights. Secondly, it's certainly worth mentioning that during the early stages of the 2020s, the airline was battling legal difficulties with Airbus surrounding the A350. This meant it had grounded the type and was not taking deliveries of it until the feud came to a close. It is something it is still recovering from, and obviously it got so bad that other aircraft were included in the proceedings. Essentially to say that the early 2020s saw its fleet looking a bit decimated. While there were periods when Qatar called the A380 its biggest mistake, the airline was eventually forced, or should I say, decided there are indeed two ways you can look at it, but to bring the aircraft back. Amid these continued supply chain problems, and obviously a 777X that at the time was continuously being delayed and a whole lot more ongoing, Qatar Airways came to that realization that it needed the capacity, and where better to look than the world's largest passenger plane that was just simply being parked. Even if this decision to bring the aircraft back wasn't for the long term, which the airline has said on numerous occasions that it is not, it would certainly give them the necessary boost that they needed on key routes before the delivery of the aircraft they truly desired to move forward with took place. As the aircraft returned to service, they were, yes, met with applause from the travelling public, who have always enjoyed the Airbus A380 experience, really no matter the airline, as long as, of course, the product is right. But now, what's next for the Airbus A380 with Qatar Airways having been reintroduced after initially being retired? Well, according to the latest developments as of the end of 2023, the Airbus A380 is slated to remain within the fleet until at least 2025, with room to extend this further. And if the last few years are anything to go by, you can probably put a safe bet on this taking place. The developments were identified in a piece aired by Aviation Week, which will be linked down below, and came directly from the new Qatar Airways CEO. We know that Akbar Al-Baker disliked the aircraft, as documented pretty heavily, but with new leadership coming in, it's given us a fresh perspective on where the airline views the aircraft within its operations. The reactivation of the aircraft we know has helped the company serve several leading markets right around the world, but that doesn't mean it wants to retain it until, say, 2035, like maybe a Qantas. The retirement of the Airbus A380 also just seems to be hinged on one critical development occurring within the business, and it's a pretty big one, but equally a very uncertain one too. That is the delivery of, finally, the Boeing 777X. We know this to be the upcoming wide-body that was initially slated to enter service in 2020, but has been delayed to 2025 at the earliest. But if you ask Tim Clark, based on the predictions following Boeing's latest crisis, he is the president of Emirates, he believes this will not occur until 2026. And it's very important to note that even if Boeing was to deliver, say, the first 777X to Qatar Airways at the end of 2025, it wouldn't actually begin proper scheduled passenger services until early 2026. So really, we're looking at a 2026 EIS. Either way, just like in 2019, and as I discussed at the beginning of this video, it certainly feels like Qatar Airways has come full circle, but maybe they've stood firm with their intent. The 777X is the ideal aircraft for them to fill the A380's void. When you pair also Qatar Airways' very public interest that aired at the beginning of 2024, involving a new aircraft purchase that would consist of over 100 jets, most likely from Boeing to boost its fleet, it certainly poses some interesting questions that if they look to bring on more 777X jets, they could have a pretty healthy fleet to move away from the A380. And the thing is, there are downsides to the world's largest passenger plane, don't get me wrong, and very few airlines right around the world have actually been truly able to make it work. In the case of Qatar Airways, there's also been much discussion around the high maintenance costs. But see, look towards the new era of travel, present through the 777X. This can be classified, and I'm being very general here, but as a more modest alternative, operating at a fraction of the cost, while still having a pretty fantastic capacity associated that many airlines would deem more than enough. But for the 777X, one of the biggest roadblocks has been that of the certification. It's felt like an endless cycle of, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And ultimately, the answer is no. So, Qatar Airways and the A380, they'll look directly towards the 777X as a replacement, while the A350-1000s will obviously play a role in boosting and modernising the fleet. It seems increasingly likely that with every passing month and per words from current management, the A380's fate will ride heavily on when the 777X can formally be delivered, and you'd expect that with each 777X arriving, Qatar Airways will reevaluate the A380's position and probably look to slowly but surely ship them off until it has made the full transition to the next generation long haul. But until then, the world's largest passenger plane will stick around for a little longer. So if this is something you would like to fly on or see, make sure to use the opportunity now to get a glimpse of it. Because if the pandemic has taught us anything, don't take aircraft that maybe come to your airport every single day and you don't want to go and see because, you'll see it tomorrow, for granted. That's going to conclude today's analysis. If you'd like me to explore any other airline/aircraft relationship within our industry, you can let me know down below in the comments or via the Google form. Take care, be safe. I'll see you in a couple of days for your latest aviation analysis. And we'll fly.